right, so today we are going to start talking about the lymphatic system. Your body harbors about 10,000 times as many bacterial cells as human cells, which means you have a lot of bacteria within your body, right? Some are beneficial, but some are potentially disease-causing. So how do we keep this in check? Well, we have an immune system. It is not an organ system, but a cell population that inhabits our organs and defends our body from agents of disease. It is concentrated in a true organ system, which is called the lymphatic system. This is a network of organs and vein-like vessels that recover fluid. It inspects this fluid for any disease agents. If anything is found, it will activate immune responses. It then returns this fluid to the bloodstream. This is your lymphatic system. It has some characteristics. It deals in fluid recovery. Fluid continually filters from the blood capillaries into the tissue spaces. The blood capillaries reabsorb 85%, but that 15%, which is 2 to 4 liters a day, of the water and about half of the plasma proteins will enter that lymphatic system and then are later returned to the blood. The lymphatic system deals in your immunity. Excess filtered fluid picks up foreign cells and chemicals from the tissues. This then passes through your lymph nodes, where immune cells stand guard against foreign matter. And it can also then activate a protective immune response if needed. Your lymphatic system also deals in liquid absorption. Lacteals in the small intestine absorb dietary lipids that are not absorbed by the blood capillaries. So, there are some key parts to the lymphatic system. There is lymph, and this is the recovered fluid. There are lymphatic vesicles, and these transport the lymph, the fluid. There are lymphatic tissues. These are composed of aggregates of lymphocytes and macrophages that populate many organs in the body. We then have lymphatic organs. And here we find defense cells that are especially concentrated, and they are separated from surrounding organs by connective tissue capsules. Okay, so here is lymph. This is a clear, colorless fluid, similar to plasma, but with much less protein. It is an extracellular fluid that gets drawn into these lymphatic capillaries. These lymphatic capillaries penetrate nearly every tissue of the body. They are, however, absent from the central nervous system, cartilage, cornea, bone, and bone marrow. There are sacs of thin endothelial cells loosely overlapping each other, and they are closed at one end. The cells are tethered to surrounding tissue by protein filaments. The gaps between the cells are large enough to allow bacteria and cells to enter into the lymphatic capillaries. And then you have endothelium that creates valve-like flaps that open when the interstitial fluid pressure is high and close when it is low. So it's a filtering system. There are different sizes of lymphatic vessels. The larger ones are composed of 3 layers: the tunica interna, the tunica media, and the tunica externa. The interna is composed of the endothelium and valves. The media is the elastic fibers and smooth muscle, and the externa is a thin outer layer. And these then converge, the vessels converge into larger and larger vessels. So the collecting vessels course through many lymph nodes. You have 6 lymphatic trunks that drain the major portions of your body, and 2 collecting ducts. You have a right lymphatic duct, which receives lymph from your right arm, the right side of your head and thorax, and it empties into the right subclavian vein. You also have a thoracic duct, which is larger and longer. It begins as a prominent sac in the abdomen called the cisternae chyli, and it receives lymph from below the diaphragm, your left arm, left side of the head, neck, and thorax, and it empties into the left subclavian vein. The subclavian veins are the collective point from the thoracic duct. Lymph flows under forces similar to those that govern venous return, except they are not governed by the heart. There's no pump. Lymph flows at low pressure and slower speed than the venous blood. It is moved along by rhythmic contractions of lymphatic vessels, and stretching of these vessels will stimulate contraction. The flow is aided by skeletal muscle pumps, and arterial pulsation rhythmically squeezes the lymphatic vessels. The thoracic pump aids flow from your abdomen to the thoracic cavity, and valves prevent backward flow. Rapidly flowing blood in the subclavian veins draws the lymph into them. Exercise significantly increases your lymphatic return, right? Because your muscles are working, your heart's pumping, everything's going. So that would increase your lymph movement. There are some lymphatic cells that you need to be aware of. There are natural killer or NK cells. These are large lymphocytes that attack and destroy bacteria. They can be transplanted into tissue and host cells infected with viruses or that have turned cancerous. They are the ones that are responsible for immune surveillance. You also have T lymphocytes or T cells, and these come from the thymus. You also have B lymphocytes, B cells, and they are activated. Their activation causes proliferation and differentiation into plasma cells that produce antibodies. There are also macrophages. These are very large, avidly phagocytic cells of the connective tissue. They develop from monocytes. They phagocytize tissue debris, dead neutrophils, bacteria, and other foreign matter. So they're basically just going around cleaning up. They process foreign matter and display antigenic fragments to certain T cells, alerting the immune system to the presence of an enemy. They also contain antigen-presenting cells, or APCs. There are dendritic cells. These are branched, mobile APCs found in the epidermis, mucous membranes, and lymphatic organs. They deal in alerting the immune system to pathogens that have breached their surface. There are also reticular cells. These are branched stationary cells that contribute to the stroma of a lymphatic organ. They act as APCs in the thymus. Lymphatic or lymph node tissue is an aggregation of lymphocytes in the connective tissues of mucous membranes and various organs. Diffuse lymphatic tissue is the simplest form. Lymphocytes are scattered rather than densely clustered. They are prevalent in body passages open to the exterior, meaning your respiratory, digestive, urinary, and reproductive tracts. And there is something called mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue, or MALT. You also have lymphatic nodules, or follicles. These are dense masses of lymphocytes and macrophages that congregate in response to pathogens. They are a constant feature of lymph nodes, tonsils, and your appendix. And specialized ones are called Peyer's patches. And these are dense clusters that you find in the ileum, the distal portion of the small intestine. And that concludes our talk on the introduction of the lymphatic system. It was basically just some general definitions so that you can start getting acquainted with the anatomy of the lymphatic system. Please let me know if you have any questions.